All right, come on, Hasher. We're doing this one together. Uh, King in Yellow, everybody. Let's talk about H.P. Lovecraft. So, if you don't know him by at least his name, you'll definitely know him by at least some of his works. H.P. Lovecraft is one of the most prolific horror writers of all time. And this horror writer inspired countless things that you definitely know today. Things like the John Carpenter's The Thing, Alien, or you might know him by his more original works. That would be Cthulhu over here. He is the inspiration of a lot of horror. He has created some of the most breathtaking words, and his prose in his book can transport you to another world and feel you feel deep, unnatural dread of cosmic horror, of great beings out there that care nothing for us, of stories of investigators, individuals that have captivated the minds for years to make him one of the best authors to ever live. In fact, I've read every story he's ever written, several that inspired him, and several that came after him. And because of that, a lot of people regard him as one of the best, greatest, and one should be the most revered. But he was also incredibly racist. So, what I want to talk about in this video is this divide between the narrative as intended versus the narrative perceived by people. Now, I want to start by at least talking about what narrative is in these contexts. Now, Lovecraft was very good about his narratives being um, kind of wordy. It was made for an intellectual audience where he was talking about these things that people cannot understand. So the only way to tell that story was to tell it from the point of view of the best and brightest, and even they cannot explain what's out there. Now, I will say there's such a thing as narrative that is interpreted incorrectly. Now, of course, the second step of narrative is you perceive the narrative, way people get to it. But I stand by there are some options where people just get it wrong. A couple is here. We have a Homelander from The Boys. Some people venerate him as a hero. Tyler Durden from Fight Club, and Patrick Bateman from Psycho. Really, this one over here is the common one that we talk about right now. Homelander over there. People venerate him as a hero when he is by far a fascist. However, these are usually fascists who are speaking about their ideology. And the creators of the show clearly intended it to be the other way. But the question is, does it matter? Well, people take art in different ways. But I want to talk about the opposite of this for the purpose of this video. Lovecraft was racist, and to say his racism did not penetrate his works, seems a little would be an unfair statement. Now, he's regarded as the master of horror, and again, his stories are good and they've captivated people for so long. This cosmic horror sense of beings out there. Shadow over Innsmouth, one of my favorite novels, about an investigator who comes and sees these fish people living amongst them. Stories of dread, of terror, that he revolutionized the genre. In fact, cosmic horror is Lovecraft's baby. I'll be talking about a thing that's not necessarily that, but also let's think about the narrative itself. Now, Lovecraft is he's a lot of things. Put a picture of his cat here. Um, go ahead and just Google Lovecraft's cat. I'll wait. You got it? Okay, yeah. That was his cat's name. That was really the cat's name. Um, he was all of these things. Now, in two of his famous novels, Shadow of Innsmouth, like I mentioned before, they have the deep ones, who are creatures from the ocean that have bred with humans, and the horror at Red Hook, which is basically a horror story set in New York. And he said blatantly, "Yeah, this is about anti-immigration, and this one is about race mixing." And his letters, as time went on, showed how truly racist and anti-Semitic he was. Big Ford supporter too. However, he did get better later in his life. He did start writing letters that were more about giving that up. He also died very young, so we don't know how he would have changed. But the stories definitely came from a racist angle. So the question is, how should we perceive these narratives? Should we go by the author's intent here, which is some of this was a fearmonger technique against racism, or do we say, oh, these are good stories of captivating my mind? And if we say the other one, can we separate the two? The question that always comes up, is the author dead? Um, the author's works, his words, his own intentions show on that page. But individuals can take whatever they want from Howard Phillips Lovecraft's writing. They can even take it and adapt it and change it. Now, this is the person I want to talk about. This is Robert W. Chambers, who was one of the inspirations to Lovecraft. I would argue he's the first real cosmic horror writer. He wrote the famous play, The King in Yellow, which is where my friend's here from, a book about a play. Um, very recommend everybody read it out there. But The King in Yellow itself also captured that imagination. But while these stories are being written, Lovecraft codified it. So, do we excuse it? Do we adapt it? What do we do? Well, art is a thing. Art is a medium that you consume, and when you get something out of it, you can definitely enjoy the stories for what they are. But then it can go too far of saying like, "Oh, Birth of the Nation was a wonderful film." I suppose cinematography. I mean, if you're Woodrow Wilson, you'll agree, and I have opinions on Woodrow Wilson. Not a big fan, but you take the art as it is, and you can look at it. Just because the author intends it doesn't mean that's what you felt when you watched it. It's not the emotions you experienced, it's not what inspired you to create. In fact, creators have been taking Lovecraft's work for a long time and using it to create. Some of them openly subverting his racism. Lovecraft Country on HBO, and the book is very good too. Uh, Season 1 of True Detective, which you haven't seen, is very heavily inspired by Lovecraft's writing and Robert W. Chambers. I think this is the best Lovecraftian film ever made, The Void. And the video game Bloodborne actively, in the developer commentary, mokes fun at Lovecraft's racism and makes it different. So does Lovecraft Country for that matter. So, H.P. Lovecraft, yeah, he's problematic. He's extremely problematic, and he uses a lot of big words. But if you enjoy him, take what you want out of the narrative. Take what horror you found out of it and use it to inspire you to create other narratives in the future. Later.